Hello, hello. I think we are going live. All right. If you are here, send me a message in the chat and say hello and where you are. Let's see if I can do this. Okay, and hopefully this time I figured out maybe how to have the live chat on the recording. So that will be great to have later. Hello, everyone. How you doing? Happy Sunday, wherever you are in the world. Hello. Necessary Makeup from LA. Yeah, it is a wild week. Let me see. Am I full screen? I guess I'm not yet, but that's okay. Hi, Debbie from Texas, Houston. Hello. Cynthia from Oklahoma. Hi. Marcia Duran, Oregon. Hello. Hello. Laura from Delaware. Hi. Kat OT from New York City. Hello. You're in the hot zone there, Kat. Vera from Toronto. Hope I said that right. Sandra from Seattle. You're very close to where I used to live all the time. Beth from Georgia. Hello. Heather from Ohio. Welcome, you guys. Good, good. Well, it looks like there's maybe 42. Wow. Okay. So we have a fun live. I have a fun live plan today. So I got your questions, and this time I kind of condensed them. So I got, instead of 17 pages like I had last time because it was copy and paste everything, it's down to 3. But I had a really great question come in that I expanded upon. Someone was asking me about the full moon in Taurus that's coming up on November 15th. So we're going to dive into a little bit of forecasting of what's kind of coming down this November for especially Nicola and Luke, because we have the rising signs, but we can tie in Jake as well because he seems to be, getting a lot of light on him, and that's understandable. Hi, Bex Mon, New Hampshire. Nice. All right. Getting people from all over the place. Yeah, so keep sharing. If you have questions along the way, please pipe them into the chat. I'll try to keep up with y'all. But when I'm, because you guys can get chatting sometimes, and so what helps me is that you actually have like a capital Q at the beginning of your question so I can easily see it or something like that. All right. PM from Information Goddess from Northern Vermont. Nice, nice. Glad you can join. Okay, so I think I'm going to just dive into the questions, just start rolling with it, I'm so glad I don't have as many technical difficulties. And then I'll start sharing charts in just a minute. So I just want to kind of get the questions out here front and center. And then, because I know a lot of people were asking me about, can you make sure you mention the questions? Because I think I wasn't as on top of that last time, but we will do that. Okay, so let's see here. Where do I want to begin? Okay, we are recording. Nick and Luke seem to make each other glow and have high energy. Also, the chemistry and sexiness they exude when they are together is palpable. Are their season 4 scenes going to amplify that, you think? And do you think that their real lives keep mirroring the show? That's a great last question. Do you think that their real lives for Nicola and Luke keep mirroring the show? Yes, I do. And I'll tell you more on that in some circumstances, right? This question was from Anna Carolina Aguirre 9919. So the thing is the energy of now is, the planets as they are right now are how things are going to like show up on film. So but then our perception may change next in 2 years when we actually see what they're filming right now. Does that make sense? Give me a thumbs up or something if that makes sense what I'm saying. It's like when you're filming and you're in the present moment, you're kind of playing out the energy that's in the planetary. Yeah, okay, good. You understand what I'm saying. So the planets in a present moment give you energy that you're expressing, right? And it's through you, right? And then how it interacts with your own chart. So I hope that makes some sense. So, but our perception of something that's created by actors in a given moment, like October of 2024, we're not going to bear witness to that and understand what that means until 2026. So there could be a different kind of pickup of expectation. That's a huge one with the fandom, right? We have expectation that is projected. I want you to take a second and think about how much you might want, and if you've had any fantasy or idea that you would like them to play out, how much of it you created that in your mind already, and then how much of you are projecting that into the future, and then how is that going to sit with the energy that's in the future? Do you understand what I'm saying? So you could go into that. So that's exactly like people watching season 3, that they had expectations going into it because they had projected forward certain ideas and whatnot, because the book is one thing, and then what Shonda and team do is, that's like a thread of the book. She's just got the rights to use the storyline, and then Julia Quinn, I think, is probably a Pisces rising, so she's very fluid in how that's going to be creatively translated from her original work, right? I'm not certain on Julia Quinn as a Pisces rising, but she has the face of a Pisces rising. So let me just put that. So the future, what we think about will be a part of how we experience it will be how much we project in the future, but our own idea about it. And then we can get disappointed if it completely goes, right? Okay. And in the energy in 2026 is going to be like off the charts. And especially what's going on in the USA in 2026. And I'll just leave it there. We'll touch on the United States of America if you're interested in the USA stuff that's going to be happening in November. I will have another live for that. I will plan it for next weekend. I think I'm going to control that a bit. So you have to be subscribed to my channel, because I noticed in the controls that that I could have just subscribers join the lives. And because the politics stuff makes me very, very nervous around the United States of America right now. And I think it's important that I control that a bit. So that particular live, you'll have to be subscribed to at least the channel. Okay. Because if it's just wide open, who knows what we get inside. So we'll discuss that later. That's another subject. Okay, so I hope that answers that question about what you could get in terms of future season 4, what it would land. Now, absolutely, I think they're, just as you kind of have to think patterns of the past will also present in the future, which means Kate and Anthony in the show season 2, or excuse me, in season 3 had kind of like a storyline that carried forward for us to kind of have a little bit of them, and then they went off, right? So I don't think Colin and Penelope will go away, because they are located in town and in future storylines, at least in the books. And if they carry them forward in a different way, that'll be interesting. But I can't say. There's too many elements of unexpected things to land in 2026, because Uranus goes into Gemini. And they're just too much that I can't predict, because you cannot predict Uranus at all. And so there'll be some quite unpredictable things that are visible in the season 4 material. Okay. And I think that includes Nick and Luke's parts for Colin and Penelope. There'll be definitely twists and turns that, oh, I didn't see that coming. Right. So yeah. Energy-wise, it's going to be more of a cerebral twist than there'll be sensuality, but I think it's like because the sensuality, we're definitely in a new era of like Uranus and Jupiter when they made the conjunction in Taurus while Nick and Luke were on the world tour. That kind of set a new precedence for world tour kind of expectations, but you're not going to have that same combo of energy. You're not going to have Jupiter and Taurus. You're not going to have that sensuality and that just oozing of that kind of sexiness. It'll be more of there'll be plot twists and things like that that I think are more unexpected and more cerebral, and there'll be higher like kind of the social part of it, because I think based on the air, there'll be so much air element energy in 2026. It will be really interesting, and there'll be a lot of like air and fire, so it will light stuff up a lot, but it'll be different, because look how they took Benedict's storyline completely different, and then he's going to fold that into. There's something very unique about how they might fold that in, right? Like how he goes about that. Hi, Eliza. I think it's Eliza from Durham. And Sandra. Oh, yes, you're welcome. About the live for next week. Okay, so I hope that, and I will do stuff on season 4, like how I'll actually do an actual YouTube video, maybe not on a live, discussing the energies. As soon as they give us some dates, we don't really know the dates yet. We may not even know that till like early 26. As soon as I've had dates from Netflix or Bridgerton, whoever, then I can actually do a chart for the date that they are going to launch, and then do it to the Netflix chart. And then I can read the energies based on that. And then I can map in Luke Thompson and Yaren from there, because we don't have their birth times, but we can at least map that in. So I hope that answers that question. Okay, let me think. Then we have necessary makeup. You asked me, do we feel a shift in energy come December of beginning of 2025 for both Luke and Nick, or where we feel they might awake? I think I understand what you're saying here. Come December or beginning. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Beginning of 2025. A couple reasons why. Okay. So the question, let me rephrase that question. Necessary Makeup asked me, do we feel a shift in energy come December of 2024 or beginning of 2025 for both Luke and Nick, or where we feel they might awake? And I think that awake in quotes is a loaded word. You mean awake to what we see as potential for the future for them? Maybe that's what you're saying. I think you're on here, Necessary Makeup. But a couple of things. So December is Sag month, right? Like you have all the way up until the sun hits Capricorn, right after Christmas, right? I mean, we have Sag from basically November 22nd or whatever until December 21st or 22nd, right? So that's Sagittarius. I always abbreviate that. So Sagittarius is heavy. So when the sun goes through Nick's, House of Friends, there'll be a lot of activity, right? And potential leaks again in that month because of how her. Okay, let's just get over to the charts. Let's just do that. Let me see if I can find my stuff though. Oh, I need this up. And hold on 1 second, please. Window. Let's do this one. Okay, let's get. Okay. Can I see cell? Hold on 1 second, please. There we are. All right. Actually, Actually, I want to share my whole screen. Hold on one second. I actually think I have everything in there. Hold on one second, please. The sharing thing is very interesting. I want the whole screen. Let's do that. It's going to give me... I don't know if it's going to do it right. I want that. When I share, I don't know if it gives the chat at the same time when I'm recording, so maybe it does. We will find out. Okay, so let me go find Nicola in transits here in my slides. Is he going to give it to me? Okay, I'm going to have to pull over here. So figuring out how to do all this. Okay. Okay. Go here. I need the next one. Is that big enough? Okay, no, we want bigger. How did I get that bigger last time? I don't even remember. One second. View. One second, please. Fit to window. There. Boom. Yay. Okay. Okay, so this is Nicola and transits of October 23rd, and we'll go into that stuff in a minute. But your question that we were talking about was December of 2024. And December, the sun is in Sagittarius. And so as that occurs, that's going to be in this part of the chart. And so when the sun comes over that part of the chart, it's going to highlight that Saturn will still be in Pisces. And so that will have the potential for leaks to happen again. Okay, because she does have Saturn square Saturn by transit right now, and that's a hard energy to work with. So feel shift in energy. For Luke, let's talk about Nick first, and then where they might and they will have the pattern of the energy from the planetary transits in 2025. Absolutely, there will be the shift when that planet Neptune connects with Nick's Mars, and I've spoken about that before. And that energy will then send a trine also up to her Venus. So there will be kind of this unexpected opening of a couple of potentials, because you look at not just what's happening to the planet, because when the Neptune comes to Mars, there's something happening for Nick on her inner plane of her consciousness. It's like the fire on the, in a way, it's like it's an element, the element of fire, but when it's in Neptune, it's kind of like something is being brought in for her that's brand new, pioneering, but also there's a bit of, you have to surrender to this. This is a part of your path, right? Because we don't control Neptune, but Neptune tells us kind of like where we can get swept up in something, or how something can emerge that we don't expect, and yet it has, and then we have to, it's kind of almost like you have to surrender to it, and then you're really kind of going, if you're the higher conscious you are by your inner work and working with things, you will lean into something as, oh, okay, this is asking me to do XYZ, like I need to surrender to this, or, oh, I can see a path here because it's been lit up for me, and then I can use my voice or something like that, right? So it may be that her voice gets escalated higher on the world stage, okay? She may have something that really touches her. And I know that could also be about the time that she begins filming that one movie we were talking about, where she's the mother and the child is taken away, and the storyline is, the mother going to rescue the child who's been taken to like the Middle East. I think the mother is not from the Middle East. It's like she married a man from the Middle East, and then they have this kind of storyline. It's like someone had mentioned on last live about the Sally Fields film from many years ago, same thing. So it's probably similar story. Maybe they're just redoing. We have so much of that in Hollywood where they redo a movie. So that could be, there might be, I don't know if it would be an updated version or maybe it's a completely different version. I don't know. I mean, how many times has that story taken place in actual real life? I mean, it'd be interesting to see, but it could be because Nick will be very selective in what she chooses in her art form to speak her voice around her truth as well for her social activism. I think that's important. So it will give her a platform that could get in a little bit, not a little bit, a lot more lit up on the world stage, and especially if you think about what's going on in the world and what she wears the ceasefire pin. But I mean, this is so hard for me to talk about. Sometimes I get emotional. Sorry. Scorpio season. So it's more like, that she'll have more to say about that, but she'll get lit up in a new way. It can awaken her to new things that she's going to give her voice to, but it'll be a bigger stage for sure. But there'll be dynamics that she could get swept up into stuff too, and then how she navigates it. And then, you can look, I don't know if anybody on here follows Taylor Swift and what she does with media now versus what she did with, how she had to navigate media, 15 years ago. But I really think it's a situation where she's figuring out the best way to deal with how to self-actualize, be true to self, still do her art, and have a private life, a personal life. But this puts her out there a bit more because when that Neptune hits into Aries here, that is going to be so dynamic because then it will be sextile to her own ascendant, and it just lights it really. It will really light it up, okay, in a big way for her. I hope that makes sense. There's Janine, you said there's an award show coming up. Tell me which one. I don't know which one. Hi, Abby from Florida. Yes, thanks, Anne. The movie is based on a true story from an Irish woman. Oh yeah. Is that the same? Is it actually the absolute same one that Sally Fields did? Are they remaking it? Do you know that, Anne? I don't know. Okay, so that's important to kind of keep in mind because when the outer planets make a move into a new sign, that astrology is like huge. It's so significant. It really is it's a paradigm shift for everybody, but anyone who has a personal planet right there gets activated in a very big way. And Nicola now has such a big world stage. It's going to be it's not a remake. Oh, it is different. Okay. Well, that will be an interesting storyline, right? Was it a book that's being made into the movie? I don't know anything about it yet. I haven't really had the time yet to search. Okay. So that will be huge. Okay. And I think I mentioned in the last live when Neptune, but let's go back and confirm. So if anybody jumps into this live wants that, I need to make a cheat sheet for all these transits. So no, that's really huge. And then right behind it, Saturn goes in. But they don't start, they have the conjunction for the synodic cycle, I think in February of 26. And because that's a new signal, when you have outer planets making a conjunction with something like Saturn or Jupiter, that synodic cycle is so significant. It really tells you the trend of the whole cycle. So Saturn is a 29-year, 30-year cycle. So it's pretty powerful, this one, right? So we have so much different energy in 2026. It's so hard to predict some things because of that, right? We can speak to them in general archetypal pictures, but yeah, so let's see here. When is that exactly in 25? So Neptune ingress is March 30th or 31st, depending on where you are in the world. Yeah, March 30th. So that's, March 30th, and then maybe 31st wherever you live in the world, right? So that of 2025 is when Neptune, that's really huge. So I don't know when she starts filming, or I don't know if anybody's heard about that. Hi, Tamasha from Paris. Hello, Joanna from Australia. Wow. Okay. What else we want to answer here? Well, we have Nick's chart up that we want to talk about. Okay, so the other part of that question is, the other thing about 2025 is Nick and Luke and Jake, they all will, they'll have birthdays in January and February, right? So Nicola's is January 9th, Luke's is February 5th, and Jake's is February 12th. We do not have a time, nor do I have a rising sign on Jake. So when I bring up his stuff, we're kind of going a little bit in the dark here, but we can map him into Nicola and speak to things in general terms, okay? But what I think is interesting is when Nicola's birthday comes on January 9th, she moves from a Jupiter Lord of the Year second house, annual perfection. This is traditional astrology, by the way. And we shift into third house, annual perfection, so Mars. And goodness, you'll have like this first insight, like that first month, 2 months. Okay, so it'd be like all of February, so the rest of January, all of February, and then March, where we don't have it. This will be an interesting, like, how precise Neptune is, because Neptune's been working on her Mars, but from Pisces, because it's so close by conjunction, but it's in a different sign. As soon as it goes into the same sign, you'll see that get really super activated. So I'm curious about events that will land right in there, right? That's going to be interesting. And of course, I have not rectified her chart, but I think I'm pretty darn close. I still think she is probably I think she's a 1 degree Aquarius, somewhere in there, right? Because of everything that's been happening for her in transformation right now. And so it's super active still. And it's super active as Pluto will come to her ascendant, right? And of course, I'm going to be working on that. I've been building all my detail for that. And the others as well. I'm starting to get more precise on actually locking in dates and times when things pop, so I can build that. Okay, so her birthday will change kind of what her focus will be. And Mars is, in traditional astrology, is malefic. I'm going to talk about things that are traditional astrology, even though I'm primarily an evolutionary astrologer and I care about the soul. Okay, so I have to kind of keep in my mind, and I hope that you will keep in your mind, that we're looking at a soul who has things that it wants to evolve. Okay, but it also has the free will, the act of courage. This is Mars is acts of, how you act, how the instincts. But she has a strong Mars in how she communicates. And I've seen in one little clip where Nicola says something like, my mom, kind of gives me heck for, saying the wrong things or something in interviews. And then you can almost see little Nicola come out in that little tiny clip. You know, the one that I'm talking about, the clip that I'm talking about, where she is talking about, they're at the table, like Luke and Claudia, and they're doing some promo kind of stuff they do a little story or whatever. And she mentions something about saying the wrong things. She is aware that she has the gift with how she speaks, but she also trips over herself sometimes, right? Like she can put her foot in her mouth. Well, that's a lot of fire energy. And people who have the fire energy, there's a lot of greatness that comes with fire energies because we start things. I'm a fire sun and I'm an Aries rising, so you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, the point what I want to make is when Nicola has that moment when she has her birthday, and sometimes I have observed that you can start getting a little bit of stuff that starts to emerge, almost like it's the preemptive stuff to the new period of time, which means that we could see stuff in December that might come online and give us a little sneak peek. But once it lands on her birthday, then we truly get the Mars as the Lord of the Year. The Mars as Lord of the Year is a bit tricky because it genuinely lights up her ascendant from a sextile. So there's a lot of activity. There will be a lot of buzz around her in January when it comes around her birthday. And also, it's a trine. So once that Mars natally is trine by from this point to this point, this energy. So it'll trine her Venus. Here's what I think is a possibility of potential. Because she's right now being seen with Jake, I think there is an opening for her to be seen more around that in some way. And I still think I have a lot of we're managing through a lot of illusions still around this thing because yeah, it's really hard to say that it's absolutely one thing versus another thing, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. Okay, I want to talk about why I think January is going to be huge for Jake Dunn. Okay, and his new film William Tell is coming out right on Nick's birthday, and so there could be a chance that they're chatting or maybe seeing or at the same events kind of thing, and that might create a little buzz about it. So I don't know. But I think there's a possibility to that because of what we've seen already. Okay. Um, and again, I think they could be just, I can't. Anyway, let me just continue on the energy for Nick on her birthday. Okay. And those few months up until Neptune, when Neptune really hits into Aries in March 30th, 31st, right there, that is like a new paradigm. So there could be like, and I feel like the veils will drop a bit, but we still have Saturn in Pisces, and Saturn's not finished. And so when Saturn sits at 29 degrees of Pisces, that's crazy energy in terms of it's so the antithesis of what Saturn does. Okay. So to see Saturn sitting at 29 with Neptune at, 0 degrees of Aries, there's just this weird combination. Okay. And that is May 25. Okay. So let's see here. Is that the 25th? 1 second. Yeah. May 25th of 25. So you want to mark these dates. May 25th is when Saturn enters into Aries. And then there's another interesting shift because Saturn in Aries is not in its strength. It's actually its fall. Because in traditional astrology, Saturn in Aries, because Saturn in Libra is exalted, meaning anyone who was born with Saturn in Libra has the ability to really be the strongest of leader and create things that actually concretely come into manifestation on Earth. They're just a powerhouse behind Saturn and Libra. So anyone with Saturn and Libra, it's a gift. Use it. I mean, you've earned that over lives. Really honing your ability to create. Because to me, Saturn is about mastery. You have the discipline, you have the mind, you have the authority when you emerge into it, but it takes time to realize your Saturn. Now, I also look at the natal Saturn of somebody to say how it's going to operate. Right now, we have, oops, let's go back here. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, so we go right here. See, so Nicola's Saturn is 16 degrees of Sagittarius, okay? So she has a Saturn in fire, but it's not like in detriment or fault. So she actually has a decent Saturn. It's just that it's going to go more across boundaries. It's going to be lit up in a passionate way and have a philosophy about it or a belief system that it's using as a part of its the way it shows up in the world. And we have that with Nicola. Nicola shows us her Saturn. She got it from her father, right? Like a lot of what and father and mother, but truly parts of herself are something that she learned from her father about being someone who cares about peace, who thinks of those world. I mean, when we listen to Nicola talk, I mean, she really has her finger on and so articulate around current world issues and leaders of those countries that she wants to say something to. So she's really got that, and so she has a voice. So when her voice comes online with this Neptune and then this Saturn, that's really going to light up the Venus of her chart, and then it'll work its way through, being trying all of that. So Nicola and her friends will have an interesting powerhouse of sharing what they believe out in the world. They'll have a big platform, right? So her voice will have ripples of power to it, okay? And she is very much a part of what I call the millennial generation, who has this. Now, she does not have Uranus in Capricorn. She has Uranus in Sagittarius, so she has a bit more fire, like to her voice, and Jupiter, like her self-confidence, her leadership, all the things. As she matured into her where she is now, right? So you kind of look at the whole trend of that. But it's the fire energy. There's unexpected elements. It's kind of also the energy that at her Saturn return, I mean, she lost her dad right before she got dairy. So right as she was coming into her career and where she's going to kind of mature into that, she lost her father, right? So there's a Saturn storyline in there as well, and something unexpected, right? So I hope that articulates kind of like what to expect on one piece of the Neptune and Saturn coming here, and then how it touches into another planet. So then that kind of brings a lot of energy up to that Venus. And Venus is responsible for her house of home and what she does at home. So it'll give her new energy for what she will do for home. I would anticipate that as paydays come in, she might acquire properties or things like this. I mean, that's home. She's going to do something new with her home. And I wonder if she doesn't set up a residence in somewhere else. Not just she would have mom home base and family in Galway. She's got her place in London, but she's going to be getting, more potential for assets based on new contracts and things coming her way, that she will, get the payday. And then how then she may acquire things over that year of being 30, because she's 37, it'll be when she's 38, okay? But really, truly, that it'll be more powerful when she goes into the fourth house, annual perfection, where that might, it might be the work comes first, then the payday, then she's going to acquire property, right? Does that make sense? Or how she sets herself up in the world, like that's her home base and what she does for security and all that. It's kind of all in there. So it's kind of like I see those steps. I'm going to read a question here that's on the chat. Tamasha says, are there any indicators to how Nicola is more liberated, free in regards to her romantic life? Yes, let's continue on the Venus, okay? So when the Neptune comes in there, that's when I think veils will drop, right? Some people might be happy, upset, whatever. But Nicola, I'm going to bring in some traditional astrology here, and it's going to probably be kind of like, what is that? So traditional astrology, Mars is a malefic and Saturn is a malefic. And this is before they knew about Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto in ancient world and astrology from the Hellenistic times. But we still look at the astrology of how they would have thought back then, right? So Mars is a challenge, and she's born in the day because the sun is above the horizon. So that means Mars is the most problematic for her. And we have actually seen that with some of the things that she's been challenged with by something she said to about Dumois, right? And now that's like tripping her here and there, right? Like, I think that's something that's still going to get more activity on it based on what I'm learning so far in my research. That could be a moment that fails drop because there's a potential for another pap while Saturn is in Pisces for sure. But once Saturn hits into Aries, there could be more challenges that are presented to Nicola that she has to manage, right? So she has to level up the game of how she communicates what she does, because then she has to combat it with being courageous or saying something direct. Like it's like taking an action that's going to probably get blown up in a big way because Neptune's there, but it doesn't always take the direction that she thinks it's going to take because Neptune is involved. Okay. So there's that. So if she takes an action, it can spill over like that. We can already see that that's kind of brewing for Nicola anyway, but there's potential here that it can trip her up. Okay. That energy also squares her Neptune, and there's something for her to be aware of that is getting challenged on, that's within the unconscious mind. It does have a lot of energy to go into the creative. That's a beautiful kind of energy for that kind of movie that she's going to be acting, right? Around the mother and the child scenario, and that to me is uniquely great combinations for that kind of storyline. So I've mentioned that it's interesting to see the parts and the timing that something is being produced, and when the acting does take place, because they go through the lines, they go through the emotions, they go through the thing as if they're going through the thing, but they're actually putting it into a piece of art, which is a fascinating way to heal some old energy, because you get new perspective on it, the nuance of having to act something out, but you're not having to fully live it in your actual truth, but you still have to, do you know what I mean? Like, I think that's important. So that will be a profound piece of cinema film that she produces that will really blow her up in another whole level. Okay. And I think I've discussed that before. So yes, it does highlight her career in a way, but her personal life will go through these difficult challenges at the same time. Okay. But I think it does settle down a little bit when she turns 38, a little bit, because there's a whole nother energy, but it's almost have to take these in chunks because she has so much going on with her chart. Okay. The other piece, because Venus, when it gets highlighted by the Neptune and the Saturn by a trine, she also has that. And so when the sun, the moon, anything is over in Leo, it creates like that powerful trine of fire, right? Like, we got this. So whoever she's connected with, like, we got this and you can't get through our barrier of fire. Like, so it depends on who's that person, right? And there is a bit of a protective kind of thing around it because of how her sun is in the 12th. Okay. So someone who's next to her will protect her or attempt to protect her, but there will be things that they're also having to figure out. So, right? I hope that makes any sense on that one. Okay, so there's that. And then that then also at some point the Saturn will pass over the Neptune and then continue forward. And then that will give her massive amount of fire energy for new projects, more projects coming in, things that she's giving voice to while Saturn is in Aries, right? So it creates a lot of fire energy. And with her air ascendant, that's kind of lights things up in a big way, right? Does that make sense? Okay, let's see here. What else we want to, okay, so December and then 2025 also, the Mars. I want to talk about the Mars a little bit more because the Mars will also see this is the North Node is going to pass over her Mars. And so to me, there is a very important something that will present for her either by her own action, likely by her own action, but she could also be responding to something that's already happened, because the North Node hitting her Mars is like, here is a view, a quick snapshot of maybe how you understand how to use your Mars, or how your Mars is tripping you up, and then what you can then do about it, because you get kind of a little, it's an important life moment snapshot, right? So that's coming, and let me tell you when that hits, because I think that's a very important moment. It's soon, because that node's going to move into the North Node's moving into Pisces here pretty soon. Let's see, that is, so 0 degrees is the first time it hits there is the true node. Let's see here. Bear with me for just a second. Node. Yeah, it goes down to 1. So December, yeah. So December of 2024, around 20, just right after Christmas, that North Node is then at 1 degrees in, some minutes, and then it's then 0 degrees in the first week of January, right before her birthday. And her birthday, that node is at 0 degrees and 23 minutes ish on the 9th. So in her solar return, the North Node is on her Mars. Do you see how important her Mars is? It's for a whole year. That moment is so huge. And isn't it interesting that Jake's movie is coming out on that day too? I mean, I'd have to kind of consider what's going on with Luke, but maybe there's things that are going on for Luke at the same time, because that's 0 Aries. And that's pretty powerful, right? So, but there's actually, that is, Nicola's Mars is also Jake's Mars. And so we're going to jump into Jake's chart now. So let me just find that so we can have a conversation about that. How you guys all doing? Let's see here. Is it this one? Here they are. Okay. This is Nicola's chart inside. Okay, this is the natal chart of Nicola in the green. Okay, and in the outer ring is Jake. And of course, we do not have a birth time, nor do I have a rising sign for Jake. So I basically did a noon chart for February 12th of his birthday, 2000, in Nottingham, England. Okay, so as I'm kind of stepping through, Jake is going to be on the world stage even bigger for his part that he plays in William Tell in January. So the promo tour that he will do with William Tell stuff will start emerging. That will light up his chart, especially in December and November, maybe even November. I don't know how much I've seen like a short clip, and I see only a brief image of him on the trailer. And he's very unique looking. I think he plays bad guy again. And it will be good to kind of see what he does with that character. He has an interesting background in his acting. Did any of you see the word that I put up on the community page that I wanted you to take a look at? Because when I went to look at Jake's film history, his very first short film is that word, Anahondia. I can't remember the name of the word. Goodness. Anyway, that word means opposite of pleasure. And I laughed out loud when I looked up the word. Because with Nick and Luke, you have the whole concept of the Eros and Psyche and the act of pleasure and all that we've gotten around pleasure. And here we get the Nick and Jake. And the first thing that kind of defines his, beginning of his being an actor, and actually is sitting on his page on the IMHD or whatever it is that short film. I was like, what does that word mean? I went and looked. I kind of got a chuckle because I get symbolism in words. I get symbolism, but the part that he plays in that little tiny short, he did a great job, by the way, for being so young, and how they produced that. And he's a beautiful kid when he's, at that age, when he, it's like, wow, if that was my son, I'd be like so proud of him. It's very well done. But there's two things that kind of like came forward for me when I was watching that little short film, was that he's very much like Pisces. He's got the Pisces look in his, he's got Pisces like eyes, but he's got a Mercury in, here's Jake's Mercury. Here's Jake's Mercury. His Mercury is in Pisces. So he could be a Mercury rising sign, like a Gemini rising sign. And I think when you do his chart at noon, it puts it in that place. So it's like, is that a possibility? Because his Mercury is in Pisces and it gives him those kind of eyes. But then I'm kind of like, well, he has such a powerful Aquarius part of his chart. His sun is there. And if, if the rising sign, if his rising sign is Aquarius, he has the forehead of like the Aquarius. So it's really hard for me to tell. So I'd have to play with those as rising sign potentials because they're kind of next to each other in terms of Aquarius and Pisces, right? So I want to explore that more. But what I thought was interesting is that definitely has like this past life kind of scenario, or yes, with Nicola, because her ascendant in the South Node is there. Okay, so there's another South Node connection. Friend, absolutely, but maybe more. I mean, we'll explore them more. Aquarius, most Aquarius are either on the what I call the periphery and are very different than like status quo. They're like, we're going to be different. We are different. And it's kind of like Oscar Wilde, different in how they are in society. With their life is almost like, we're going to do it differently. We're going to show you that. So he has a lot of his charts in that Aquarius energy, right? And how he maps in that friendship, relationship connection with Nicola. He's got Neptune in Aquarius. He has Uranus in Aquarius, and his Uranus at 17 is sextile to her Saturn. So there's going to be these kind of opportunities where there's like breaking things open, and when they're together, which happen. And so when they're together, it's actually can be challenging. And look at the Mars. That Mars is like, when I saw it, I was like, okay, there is something that they care about passionately together, especially around the social activism stuff and what they're going to say. But he's not the strong voice yet that I've seen. It's more that when they are seen together, it's kind of like the energy that can get tripped up, and then, or if there's a potential, I don't know how much percentage yet, that their friendship can be leveraged to be the front gate and you don't get to see behind the gate, kind of thing. So there is a possibility there that could be what is the real deal. But maybe it is more. Maybe it is a true, more significant, beyond just friends relationship where, until I see someone actually say what they are, it's all like, we're just kind of like figuring it out, like from what they present to us. But I have done a lot of exploration across these kind of relationships that could be used for the press, for when they're in the public eye like that. And so I kind of, because of how Nick was online before, it would not surprise me that she wouldn't use the same kind of tactics, if you know what I mean. I kind of wonder about the potential for pap walks and those kinds of things. So I'm careful to like say, oh, that's exactly what that is. I call out BS on a lot of that stuff because I've done a lot of digging, and I even dug into Dumois' stuff last night. I was like, oh my God, I'm going down the rat hole. But it's more about like how they because I wanted to find out the founding part of that and that kind of energy, because there was Dumois and then there's others that have been before, and and People magazine, or whatever People is now, is very similar. And so it's like, and the thing is I really never followed this before. So this is like, oh my gosh. It's what people's perception is and how we buy into the certain information or not. I don't buy into most of it. I was like, okay, that's bullshit. Or, unless they're, and I also think it's a little bit gnarly to be caught like, oh, they're caught kissing, and we got that on my cell phone, and I'm going to send that over here. It's kind of a bit. Anywho, but that's gonna that exists because it feeds itself, I guess. But I try not to judge because people are going. The soul will direct them in their paths of whatever, and then they have to figure out how private they're going to be, right? So I try to pull back as much as I can, be objective as possible, even when there's like, ooh, can't tell. And like I told you, Saturn and Pisces creates so much illusion around Nick right now that it's kind of like, what's the real deal, right? But there is also, what is she communicating in some of the posts? What is Luke Newton communicating in some of the posts? And then what's the truth? And then these kind of incidental stuff of her and Jake out in public, right? Like, there is no friggin' way. This is just logic. There's no friggin' way that you're walking New York City or even London after Nicola has been this visible, that she's not going to get picked up and seen. So yeah, maybe she, and going to like the event this summer at the festival, the music festival, she knows she's going to be seen, right? But yeah, and with her sun in the 12th house, the true partner, the true significant other is going to be hidden, right? Going to be hidden. So yeah, but there's things that I still think that we're going to become aware of when the Saturn and the Neptune come to the Mars, right? Yeah, does that make sense what I'm saying, you guys? Hi, Emma, 95. Hi, Lisa from UK. Yeah, Tamasha, yes, exactly. Can't help but wonder if the whole Jake Nicholas situation. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think there's a potential. I mean, because if, let me just say this, I have the Mercury in Capricorn like Nicola, but mine's at the top of my chart. She's a strategic and logical thinker. There is no way that she is not thinking strategically now how she is in the public eye. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I don't, and I wouldn't put it, and I would be like, you go, girl, if you strategically use your dear friend who's willing to be seen with you, and wrap your fingers. I would wrap my fingers around somebody if they were going to be my gatekeeper. You bet I would. So I think it's strategic. It can be very strategic, and people might say, "Oh, you're in denial about what." I don't really freaking care, honestly. I'm just sharing the astrology about what I think you could actually see. I think things are like sus right now because we have all the Neptune energy in the Pisces, and the Saturn in Pisces, and now that squares her Sagittarius, which contains her friends, and that includes Jake, and that includes anybody she's with in the friend group, and what might get leaked out, all of that stuff. And she has enemies. And who are her? There's two things that Nick has. When you look at enemies, you look at who wants to hurt, who wants to like put negative information on me or whatever, right? Like, or you look at 12th house sign is Capricorn, and so that's Saturn. So there's that potential, that there, a hidden enemy, 12th house, hidden enemy can be a friend or connected, okay? An older person. Then there's also a known enemy. The known enemy is Leo, but with the sun in the 12th. Somebody she's also connected to could also be a known enemy. So if she has a significant person, significant other, if it turns negative or sour, they become a known enemy, but with things hitting her unconscious mind. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Because sometimes some relationships are for our good, even when it's like, oh, that's difficult us to understand what's coming out of our unconscious mind. Okay? Yeah. I mean, when you learn astrology, you understand like the the interesting 12th house is loaded with stuff, and there's loaded symbolism for Nicola in relationship. And we already talked about this because of the South Node being in Libra and what she's come in this life to learn about relationships. And that's her Venus and how people tie into her Venus and how she has her voice and her friends and all of that, right? So there's so much going on there. Tamasha says 100%. If one of my friends was willing to partner with me for him to protect my actual relationship and for him to get exposure, it makes sense. Yeah. It's kind of a win-win, right? It gives him exposure. It protects her because she has someone who's willing to be public in the public eye with her. So I don't put that past her because, I mean, come on, Nicola watches, what is it, Vanderpump something? I don't even watch that stuff. Housewives, whatever. I mean, she's so thick in there, like on some things that she likes. It wouldn't surprise me that she knows other stuff because she was so much online before, right? So it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, come on. A lot of people in the LGBTQ community know about beards. Give me a break. She would know. She would know and then flip that on its head and use it as she needed it, if she needed to, right? I wouldn't put it past her from what I call the strategic standpoint. Correct. And it's not somebody that if Luke has a jealousy thing, he wouldn't be jealous because they may be the connect. I also did Luke's chart with Jake's, and I'll show you their connections. Hi from San Antonio, FM, San Antonio, Texas. I believe JD is a PR situation, hands down. Nicola's smart lady. Yeah. So I'm not the only one. However, we could all be like holding our, ideas and thoughts and theories that we have in our hands come Neptune to the Mars. But I think when Uranus comes opposite by transit to Nick's Venus, we have a whole nother thing going down with her Venus. Okay. So, and that is something to me that will be the breaking open moment, awakening. You guys asked me, what's the awakening moment for Nicola? I've had my Uranus opposition. When you have your Uranus opposition, you absolutely get it. So when Uranus catches up to 24 degrees of Gemini, absolutely, she'll have like what I call the midlife poof, blow up. And then you have like, oh my God, I didn't know that was underneath all that, right? But you have those moments. But when it hits her Venus, it's like something in the friends, maybe a female friend, and something occurs that completely does a spin for her. And I think I gave that date before. But that's the first awakening is because when Uranus goes into Gemini, it's going to trine her ascendant. So it puts her out in the world in a bigger way, right? So there's the trine to the ascendant, but now it's making an opposition to the Venus. So there's something that happens on her home, somebody in the home, like this, that's her family. That's something that can kind of unexpectedly kind of happen and open up. But it's also like, it's also the South Node. And it's like when she's traveling, that's the one I get nervous about because it tends to be when she's traveling, she gets a lot of stuff. So when Uranus goes into Gemini, that is in July 7th. July 7th. And then it's going to station retrograde at 1 degree in September. I think that's September. 1 second. September. These are important dates. So July 7th of 2025, that's the Uranus in Gemini ingress. And then, where is it? Oh my gosh. Nope. Where'd it go? Can I see that? September. Okay, on the 6th. September 6th of 2025, Uranus stations retrograde at 1 degree, which is Nicola's Venus. So when it stations, it's even more powerful. So she's up for something. There can be unexpected things that happen when she's abroad, when she's traveling. This is a huge date, okay? That's a big one, okay? Really unexpected stuff. And then it's really sitting at 1 degree all of September and the early part of October, and then starts going back into 0 degrees of Gemini at the end of that October next year, this time next year. And then in November, it goes back into Taurus. She's going to get more Taurus, kind of what I call little earthquakes at the bottom of her chart, the part of herself where the moon is, okay? And it backs up all the way to 27 degrees of Taurus. And that lands on her lot of fortune right here. So you see how Uranus is really awakening Nicola at these times, right? So there's event, 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 event. And so by having those kind of dates, you get some insights because it's precise. Uranus is precise, right? And we want to take a look at, but we have outer planet stuff happening, not only with Neptune, we have Pluto on her ascendant. The girl is waking up in such an explosive way that it's hard to help her understand these things because it can feel so unstable. And when you're that public, goodness, some things will just be like, oh, this is such a ride, but then, oh my gosh, the thing is tilting over here. How do I deal with that? And you can have tower moments, as people are aware of the tarot, and you can have difficult things that it forces you to pull back or say something courageously, or maybe you say something freaking unhinged, right? Like with that Neptune coming onto her Mars, do you think that she's not going to say something unhinged? It'll be very difficult because she'll be very instinctual, right? And then it can be a bit of self-undoing in a little bit of ways in terms of like perceptions, thoughts, and communication that come pouring out, okay? But her desire is to protect. I mean, that's a strong Mars, and a Mars that is in its own sign is like very cutting. It will be very cutting words. She'll probably try to control the narrative. That's the Capricorn part of her chart. But boy, when outer planets are there, I've been there. I know this one. You feel unhinged because you're having to respond to something. Okay, does that make sense, guys? Yeah. Hi, Jazzy. Okay, so trying to keep it going here. So the awakening question for Nicola is yes, but you're really seeing it over multiple periods of time and multiple transits of the outer planets, Neptune and Saturn to her Mars, Uranus opposite her Venus. These points in time that I just articulated are very important for that. Okay. What else? Okay, we got Jake's chart up here, and Jake, of course, is going to go through another huge. He's going to get more visibility because of the role that he plays in William Tell in January of 2025. So he's coming online beyond the Disney audience, right? Like he's got a little bit of like, who are you from his visibility with Nick from the Paps and all that, but he's going to be recognized for his own artwork, his own stuff come next year in a bigger way. That makes me think about the Uranus, or excuse me, this part of his chart, that South Node in Aquarius, and how it's connected. So there'll be a lot of connection with Nicola, like, oh yeah, I remember that guy from right? If people have been paying attention to that or not. I mean, there's the fandom, and then there's the audience that he'll have beyond that. It'll be like people first recognizing him in a major role in a major film. Okay, so he'll have his own kind of steps through that. His sun is in Aquarius, so all the time that Pluto is going to Aquarius, Jake will be more visible, and he has an interesting chart in connection to Nicola, simply because we have the Mars, same degree, for goodness sakes, but his nodes I always look at the nodes. Now, I don't know what house his nodes sit in. I only know that the nodes are the south node, and that to me is Uranus. The transits of Uranus are very important. And then Saturn, because those are the two rulers of Aquarius in modern astrology, okay? Ancient astrology, traditional astrology only looks at Saturn. Okay, so where in his chart, look at where Saturn is down here. Now, you guys are like, oh, look at his moon next to his moon. But his moon, because we don't have a birth time, literally it's a 13-degree spread. So I wouldn't say that's exactly where his moon is. What's important is that Saturn and moon are in the same sign for Jake Dunn, which gives him a super grounding force. And it's difficult because I have Saturn and moon conjunct in Taurus. I know this one. It's kind of like you are a stable shoulder, literally, for a lot of people. So he has like this maturity aspect to him that she's definitely connecting with on occasion, right? Or more than on occasion. But it's square. Here's the important thing, it has this weird, I shouldn't say weird, it has this intense combination of being square. His Saturn moon combo, his moon could be, I think it was like 20 degrees, 24 degrees or something like that, all the way back to like, you could look at the whole span of the, basically from midnight on February 12th of 2000 all the way to like 11:59 p.m. on February 12th. And you look at the moon across that, it's 13-degree spread. So it can go that far, right? So it's important to kind of like, okay, that moon, until we have a tighter, if we have a rising sign, then we're way more like we're very close, like within a couple degrees, right? But we don't have a rising sign yet. I mean, it was even hard for us to find Nottingham, right? Thank you. I don't know who off the top of my head who gave me that, but that was fantastic that you did a little bit of homework there on going back to the Facebook post to identify that. He is very talented. I think he is a very talented actor, just from that simple little short film. I haven't watched anything else. But the short that he did, I was like, wow, not bad, you know. Um, he has a poetic, the Pisces to me is very important for his, but his Mercury in Pisces kind of gives him that poetic. So he probably has that kind of perception about things and very fuzzy edges and those kind of things. Okay. Also, you can see that he is also the potential for part of the leaks. So when they're together, is his energy and her energy together create the leaks, because you have the Mercury in Pisces, that's leak, and then you have the Saturn and that kind of stuff. Of Nicola, but it's also, see his Chiron 15. I mean Pluto 12. I mean that's a difficult Mercury placement for him. All right, but he can use it. He can use it for transformation. So when he puts it into his art, it gives you beautiful art. You know, but it's an interesting thing that in the Renegade Nell stuff, I haven't watched yet, by the way, but I want to. Um, he's a king, and then he plays a prince in that. He played. I'm like, I kind of wonder about the roles that he gets, because it tells me a lot about the soul and what they're kind of like. Oh, I'm stepping into these shoes of this personality, this character, right? And in that first film, that little short film, he's a prince that's escaping, um, you know, the monarchy stuff in that film, which is a great little film. It's like, oh, isn't that interesting? That's very Aquarian, very Aquarian. And yet he's playing the role of a prince. So he has like a royalty kind of stuff, which is interesting because North Node for Jake would be Leo, right? So it's like, please lean in. The universe is like, lean into the Leo, Jake. That's where you're going to shine. And what's interesting is he plays these characters where he's playing a royalty, the Leo. I was like, oh, that's pretty good, right? I love that, looking at it. Hi, Karen. Thanks for joining. So that's a fun one as well, right? So Jake's chart's very interesting, and what it gives, he has a Neptune. He has Neptune conjunct his south node right here. You see, And that enhances that touch with Nicola's ascendant, okay? It's like an extreme Aquarian. It gets enhanced. Tori says, Tori has opinions that in Renegade Nell, he's a Lord's son, his heir. Oh, he's the Lord's son, the heir. Oh, interesting. So I thought he was the king, but he's actually the Lord's son. Okay, so that makes sense. He's not a king, but he's like aristocrat, right? The aristocratic. Interesting. I like that. Oh, I'm sorry. That was really loud. MD, Leos have nothing on Aquarius. Actually, Leos and Aquarius are on a spectrum. So all the zodiacs are kind of like Leo, and Aquarius are on the same kind of spectrum. It's just, one is opposite, so in the experience of living on Earth, we have the zodiac, right? And there's 12 signs, but it's 6 pairs. And if you understand that there's 6 pairs, you're going to understand how things can get polarized. The polar opposite of an Aquarius is Leo. But when you have the tie between your south node, north node, and your sun is an Aquarius, guess what you're going to be doing? You're going to be working a lot with that Leo, because your north node is like, okay, take your Aquarius, but be visible with it, sir, or gal, whoever. Yeah. There's something that to me, guys, is super important as Pluto, once it goes back into Aquarius on November 19th and stays there for 20 years, we're going to be really transforming how we kind of look at the individual self-actualization. That's being very individuated, right? That's Aquarian, very Aquarian. You're an individual in a whole. But the Leo part is, how do you present yourself out in the world? Are you really out there? Not everybody's going to be out there. I'm not saying that. But it's that interesting understanding that polarity, because of how we project a massive amount onto stars and people that are in the public eye, and we project onto them parts of ourselves, and we have to kind of pull that back, or how would I be different, but there's an interesting experience of understanding something about ourselves by that projection, right? So that's why psychology is so interesting to study. And astrology, you put astrology with that, it just like blows it up in a more I just love astrology for how much it gives us in the symbolism and to understand ourselves. So I think it's an interesting thing that, Jake Dunn's South Node is on Nicola's ascendant, and then also how that is also activated by his Mars as a sextile. This is super powerful, right? And his North Node in the Leo, but his Sun is 23 degrees of Aquarius. And if I'm not mistaken, Nicola, I have her progress chart here somewhere. Hold on. 1 second, please. Is this it? Nope, that's transits. Hold on. Here it is. Let me show you that. Her progress Sun, 26. I don't know how recent she met Jake Dunn, but is he not connected with Louisa in that friend group? I don't know how they connected. Or what's her other friend? The guy friend? They're always with way back in her stuff. They're connected. So, but Jake Dunn is also connected to her, the guy that was on, the actor that was on Dairy Girls. I don't know his name. I can't remember off the top of my head. But he's connected to him because he was on another series, Big Boys or something, for 2 episodes or something for that show as well. So their friends are connected. So very friend. I mean, so much in the friend group, right? And so there's an interesting connection. MD, yes, they are connected through Louisa. Yeah, so Louisa has a lot that connection. Yeah, they do have a lot of similarities, which she does have a lot of similarities with JD. But there's something about Aquarius Sun. Okay, this is like Luke. Lots of friends. Okay, there's like always this kind of conversation around friends because Aquarius like to have a lot of friends. What's interesting though is like how well do those friends really know that Aquarian sun? There's a detached approach to life. And if you're Aquarius rising, but he has a south node. I mean, let's go back here. He has south node. Oops, wrong one. Hold on. I got to get back to that slide. This one. Yeah. He has south node in Aquarius. So he really, really, really is deep, and he's I I don't know if he's a Leo rising like Luke is and have that same. He doesn't have the same mirroring effect. You know what I mean? MD, yeah. Aquarians only know what we choose to show. Oh, you're an Aquarian, Sun and Moon. Oh, you would know this very well. And I have read quite a few Aquarian suns and Aquarian moons, so I kind of understand the detached piece and that what you really share. There's so much that's guarded, right? But it's kind of like where's the Leo in the chart for real, because that tells us about what that Aquarian sun will rule in the life. So we don't have that yet for Jake, right? So it's kind of like, but I can look at it like this in terms of what that represents in connection to Nicola, right? Like when you put someone else with their, put the two together, what are his planets lighting up for her? And then what are they lighting up for him? So her ascendant, the way she is in the world, is lighting up his south node, his Aquarian sun, how people might perceive him as different, or the breakthrough energy that he brings, or that he stands with her on her social activism. We've seen that, right? That's a huge one. And then his Mars, same as her Mars. But he has Pluto in Sagittarius because he was born in 2000. So the dynamic between his transformation, he brings the Pluto in the Sagittarius is a transforming energy towards Nicola, which is not easy. Does that make sense what I'm saying? It's a transformation, but he has a wound there as well because he has got Chiron in Sag. So his beliefs, him being in places, in the foreign places, has a little bit of a stinger on it, because when you have Chiron and there's an underlying current of an energy that the person, by being incarnate, by being in a body, has a wound, and it's like an underlying theme. And so it's like the crossing of boundaries, like being on video, being papped. These are also, they're transformative for him, but it also is unsettling. Makes sense? Because an Aquarius wants to be detached, but they're also afraid of, they can be afraid of the thing that they can't see. Like getting in there with that access without giving the permission to have access. If that makes, by that combination, I hope that makes sense. Yeah. What else? He has Venus in Capricorn, which means I look at Venus in Capricorn as an energy that is protective of things that are feminine in his own inner world. And then how he does express that would be like if he's in a romantic relationship, then he will have a protective bit until he gets to know someone and be comfortable, because there is like that energy. That's a Venus in Capricorn has a reserve. It kind of holds itself back and kind of slowly gives out like the resources of that. And Venus in Capricorn with a Saturn and Moon in Taurus can get there, but they take their time. That makes sense? And here's another thing, because his Saturn is in Taurus and his Venus is in Capricorn, it's not as hard if Saturn was in another sign. And the reason is because Saturn and Venus are in each other's signs. So Saturn being in Taurus for Jake and Venus being in Capricorn, actually are talking. It's called this is called mutual reception. So they can actually talk to each other. There's commitments that can be made, and they actually do have a stake in the ground. They actually have their feet on the ground more than someone else who doesn't have that. And yeah, so there's that. So this person can make a commitment, and they're more steady in that. Unless, let me see if there's anything. The thing that can flare up for Jake is when the Venus, because he was born with the Venus square Jupiter. But Jupiter is, by progression, definitely probably tipped over into Taurus, okay, for Jake. So he's got the Jupiter in Taurus by progression in life, you know, that he can bring in, and he's going to leverage that with, yeah. So however that is in his chart, I don't know where that, he has a very powerful 29-degree Jupiter is huge. It's kind of pioneering. He does things like big and pioneering in a way. And so being that he did that little short film is actually profound because it's kind of pioneering how he put himself out there. And he will do things that maybe as a director or something like that in his career, that how he puts himself out in the world, because that's the expansive part of self, will be quite interesting to pay attention to. And his Jupiter is square the nodes. So he came to this life, I've got something to prove, right? Jupiter is square the nodes out, you know, that's 2 degrees, that's 29 degrees. That's like tips over into Taurus, and it's fully square. It's still square by degrees, very tightly to square the nodes. And when you have a planet square the nodes, you have a very strong thing that you're trying to unravel from the past and then put it forward, you know, and then reweave it in this life. And so by looking at that Jupiter, he has to go to the south node first. He has to do the Aquarian in a heavy way, big way, but before he leans into the Leo. So let me talk about like what could that be, because his Saturn is in Taurus, you know, and the Uranus is actually in the sign. And so it's to me, it's Jake at a young age acknowledging maybe parts of the self that are defined as different in the arts, not just the arts, but his personal like preferences for who he may have romantic interest in. That's very Aquarian. So it wouldn't surprise me that he firmly gets an awareness of self at a young age, somewhere in his teens, that, you know, I mean, I don't like to call things out, but, and you can't really read someone's sexuality choice necessarily in the chart. Okay, I'm going to put that out there. But he's very artistic. He's very unique. I mean, in that first little short film, they're in outer space in this, you know, I mean, it's like from the position of being in flight in huge future, like so far projected. It's fascinating. So you can just take it from that angle, right? But I think there's more to it. He has to like acknowledge that part of the Aquarian part of himself. And he's doing it in his art for sure. And then the friend group, you can actually see that in the friend group and what they support and all of that. So, yeah, does that make sense without being too sensitive on some other subjects? Beth says, I have a friend who looked like Lindsay Lohan who would go in her back door, dress like her, then go out of the front door and then leave in LL's car. So Papa could pick her up. Ella went on her way then. I don't know what that means. Sorry, that's a... Oh, looked like Lindsay Lohan, who'd go in the back door, dress like her, then go out the front door and leave in those young... I am not sure what that's saying, Beth. Sorry. MD, yes, he seems reserved. Yes, he's absolutely reserved. He has a Saturn and Moon in Taurus. That has like, I have that responsible thing. And he's also probably very responsible with how he looks at resources, because Venus, your Venus in your chart also helps you understand how your resources are, like physically, spiritually, but also financially. So he would probably have and in the theme of that very first short, they are against capitalism. And one of the books that he was looking at was on something about Ginsburg and the ancients. It's such an interesting little short film. And it's saying a lot about what's in his chart. Yes, he has old soul vibes, just like Nicola. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And so, what else did I want to point out? South node. So the Venus. Okay, let's talk about Venus for just a second. His south node is Aquarius, which sits when you have someone's node sitting on your ascendant, and it's the south node. There is something of the past connected to the person that you might be helping them with now, this life. And you might have come from another life as a friend. And the reason I say friend is because Nicola is still in a south node situation, but the recent kind of leaks in New York, or excuse me, in London, we were still in the south node eclipse of the sun in Libra. Okay. And so that to me means like there's a change up, but we're definitely seeing some south node Libra stuff emerging, right? So Jake is a part of that equation for Nicola maybe understanding something about her south node and her Venus. Okay. I hope that makes sense. Because every person that we're connected, every person, we have this kind of connection that we make when they're, but every person offers us something for us to be aware of and acknowledge about ourselves. Like he brings through so much energy in the Aquarius, just like Luke. But they also have the moon, and they have his Saturn has a little bit more seriousness with it. So he has a more serious, maybe how he comes across. And then the Venus in Capricorn is also serious. So, yeah. He has so much transformational energy in the fire and the air. So when you have air and fire, it has the ability to really be expressed in the world in a big, big way, because that's fire and air are masculine. They're in terms of yin yang, it's more yang. It's more outwardly expressed. And everything in our charts, we have either heavy yin or heavy yang. You kind of look at your combination and say, okay, I'm going to be learning more about this because that's maybe not but I came this life to express more. So that's important. So I think that's important to point out, like those elements, that would be fire, earth, air, and water, right? And the fire and the air, anything that's fire and air is yang, and anything that's earth and water is yin. Okay? That's your basics. PM says Nicola and Jake also seem to have photography and older cameras in common. Yes, I saw that. Okay, in addition to their social activism. Yes, I would love to be able to say this about Nicola and Luke, but yeah, just because you have an interest, though, a hobby interest, doesn't mean that you don't have to be the same as your maybe potential partner. I'm not saying that Luke is absolute as that, but you're like, my husband has a few things that are solid, we're the same, and then there's plenty of stuff that's different that makes him interesting, right? So yeah, I wouldn't worry about that. And that's more me saying that if as a potential for future Luke and Nick. Okay, Nick and Luke. But right now there's a lot more Jake going on. and fine, so be it. But it could be also a gatekeep. That's my, I think that might be that could be a possibility. I wouldn't say that's absolute. Again, even I and other readers, I think, are challenged by the Pisces stuff going on with Saturn and Neptune right now. Okay. Um, Let me see what else. And maybe, this is maybe a jump, but having us have to explore this information while there's so much Neptune and Saturn in Pisces, I think is a huge check yourself, guys, because if you didn't know that, you could just be building storylines into illusion. I mean, the reality is harder to see. There are hints for sure that are maybe there in some of her posts and pictures and things that Luke's. There are hints, absolutely. Things are wearing necklaces and blah, blah, blah. But we can't see it all the way. And there's a reason that, there's still illusion. And it's really hard to cut through the freaking illusion. And there's this dance that's going on. And so we're having to learn, even the readers, even myself as an astrologer. PM. PM. But in God's name, what is keeping Nicola and Luke apart? I'm dying here. They're not. Okay, because you're saying them apart as a pair, a romantic pair. Who knows? Like in terms of the astrology is it. Let me just say it this way. It is very possible that Luke and Nick are actually together, and we have an illusion that's being brought forward for us for a protective mechanism. That's a probability. Okay. Number two is, or we could be looking at what has been is being shown to us. We're not accepting it because we're holding a grip on the idea of something that was created as an idea and maybe isn't the truth. Right? See how there's so much Pisces energy, guys, and that's important. And Jupiter in Gemini is chaos. There's the two things could be true. She could still have feelings for both of them, but one is deeper, more private. I mean, yeah. And I think there's a breakthrough again when those outer planets do shift. That's when the shift of getting the truth really comes forward. Yeah, Luke. Yeah, Lena. Luke bought her a camera. That's someone recognizing your interest and caring to learn about you. Yes. And I think that's interesting that Luke bought her a camera because he knew, but he knew that she's going to be taking pictures of him. Yeah. So there you go. MD. My husband and I have nothing in common other than we are attracted to each other and fell in love with our differences. Absolutely. Stephanie Aguirre, does Jake have a past life connection with this? Yes, I'm saying yes. He has a past life with Nicola's connection because of the Uranus onto her ascendant. Okay, and her Venus close to her sun. Yes. And the Mars on the Mars is a connection this life. So something they have to say and something they're going to take action on. So to me, I kind of think of the energy that Jake has for the year that he was born and the planets and all of that has something to say. So 2000, and then she was born in 1987. So you have this millennial plus Gen Z, right? And you put that powerhouse, there is still something he could. So it's hypothetically them together as friends have something to say, and they could have something to say about not only their using their image for social activism. We've already seen that. He supports her. He pins. He does stuff. And then the other one is that Nicola has the bigger stage right now. It's not that Jake won't blow up eventually in time. He's still so young, right? He hasn't even hit his Saturn return, guys, and that is profound because of what there will be an interesting maturing for Mr. Jake. Absolutely, when he gets through his Saturn return, he's not even there yet. He has to go through he's been going through the Uranus square because his Uranus is in Aquarius, so there's square to the Taurus energy, right? Okay. Yeah, and then Uranus has been squaring his sun, so it's just blowing him up, right? So there you go. Okay, FM, haha, Luke likes to be in pictures, just not what the rest of us see. Yeah. MD says, my first impression was he wanted to produce something with her in it. Oh, you mean Nicola? The first impression of Jake. Oh, that would not surprise me. And his Jupiter in Aries would, yeah, I see what you're saying, for sure. Dora, is there another significant other for Jake? Ooh, good question. I don't know Jake's time of birth, so I don't know what his 7th house is. I don't have the houses. I don't have a rising sign, so I can't really say. But you can look in his history a little bit. He has a little tiny bit, and you look at in friend group pictures and stuff. There's the assumptions that there has been someone there, but are they still there? I don't know. So that's operating from a bunch of assumptions. I can't really tell from the astrology right now. Okay. Because Venus, let's just talk about Venus for just a second. Venus right now is in Scorpio. No, is it in Sag? I think it's in Sagittarius because Nicola recently had the Sag return, and then those photos dropped the next day. Or yeah, I mentioned that because I was up late that one night, and I was like, oh, she's had her Venus return, and then the pictures dropped literally the next morning. But her Venus return was like 2 or 3 days before that. So but that's Nicola's Venus. His Venus has not reached its return, but I would say that his Venus, by the Venus being in the Sagittarius energy, has some transformation with like, what is that? There's a huge amount of questions on it because the Venus in Sagittarius for him will pass over his Pluto, pass over his Chiron for the time that it's in there. And then once it goes into Capricorn, then he will get his Venus return. And that date is, by the way, I have to go back. Hold on. So Jake will have his his Venus return. November something. Hold on. Nope. It will be like the 1st of December. It might be December or November 30th, Jake's Venus return, or it could be December 1st, right? So hopefully that answers that question. And then he gets a new cycle of Venus for 22 months. So, but again, without having his rising sign in a rectified chart, I can't, or know that information. I can't really say exactly because I don't have 7th house information totally. Okay, let me answer some other questions here that I have. Okay, let me see what I've answered here. What did I do with my pen? Hold on 1 second. One of the questions is, D2T asked me, I have a question that keeps coming up in comments on social media. Is chemistry we all felt watching on Promo Tour genuine? Yes, I think I answered that before in the first live. Meaning, do they have feelings for each other, or was that all amped up on purpose to get viewings of the show? Yes and no. I don't think some parts of it that we all felt and observed was instinctual D2. And that's why the argument is that was more real. There, you could see the realness in it by how they were as when you observe something over multiple promo tours, you can see. That's why I even did this the playlist that I've done. You can go back and look at those, and you can see some. Yeah, some is going to be amped up to promote the tour, but some is going to be that it's instinctual. And I think it was energy that was still presenting underneath it all that was real, meaning absolutely feelings are there, but there's been like guardedness, right? Like, but in the video that I did for Rio de Janeiro, there is, I think, a sneak into that being heightened before they went towards London premiere, because there had to be a peaking moment for what I call karmic wave, the karmic wave breaking. Kind of a thing in evolutionary astrology that we study is like things are like the universe is setting it up. And so you can almost see the thing ramping up into the thing before it breaks like that. And that's a breaking moment for both of them in different ways, but definitely heavy for Luke. But Nicola is participating, and she has her own stuff within the mix relative to her South Node. Okay. I don't think we were duped. And I definitely think underneath it all, there is love and connection there that is, yeah. But there is some kind of position. But the position is because I think there was a holdback in 23 by Nicola. That's my hunch. Okay. I don't have it absolute in astrology. That's my hunch. And I think that holdback, then Luke goes, oh, okay, that's what it is. And then I go on, and then I, connect with somebody else in life, and that plays the storyline out for the summer of 23. And then going into 24, he has a relationship with somebody else. Okay. Yeah, whatever. And then, but when he connects again with someone he absolutely had a connection with, it oozes out. There's just, there's a lot going on there. And I think there's the past life connection also. Okay, let me talk about past life stuff. Past life stuff is like going to emerge with more than one storyline in your life. But certain people will have a stronger situation emotionally on you, right? Let's talk about the emotional aspect here, okay? Because I think the emotion that was not fulfilled and is brought forward by the soul to do, set it up again, universe. I'm going back in, dive into life. You have your persona that you create, and then you reconnect with that person in the storyline. The stronger the emotion on the past life has the stronger pull to try to evolve that thing. Okay. That storyline of being hurt. And guess there is no freaking way that there wasn't kind of a hurt that happened after London, a little bit. Yeah. Of, oh gosh, this is, it's getting exploded in a way that I don't want it exploded. Right. But there's also, so Nicola's participation in the London premiere being people, oh my gosh, this is going to hurt Nicola kind of idea. Yeah, she's having to like bring forward her precise way of supporting Luke. And then also, how do I feel about this thing? Because, what she had in her own willingness to go forward or not forward, and then he's having this revelation that can't feel very comfortable, right? I mean, that's got to be difficult. So you put on your actor's face and you go win your Oscar for your personal performance on your personal life and just try to do the thing. So it's more about, what are you learning about this, about your own blocks of committing into something, because of whatever those souls emotionally have entangled, right? And that's, when you have a past life storyline, sometimes when you meet those people, you get the flame up. Like I have had this myself on more than one occasion. When you first meet something, it's like, oh my gosh, it's like a magnet. It's like, what is this? Right? And that has two things. Some of them can be truly long-term healthy relationships, but it doesn't mean that you're not bringing up something for you to heal. You're in a healing place, or this person's going to awaken you because it lands right in your stuff. that you emotionally have, the emotional charged stuff that you have to figure out how to evolve. That's the point. I hope that makes sense. So yeah, I am just observing. Okay, we're looking at images and the feeling of when I look at it. I mean, this is just, and this could be my not seeing clearly through Pisces energy. Just going to say that. But it could be when I look at images with Nicola and Jake, I still feel very like friend, like really close friend who's got my back. Or he's got my back, but then he can stumble because he's learning. He's, you can have moments where he stumbles too, right? And that's the potential with anyone. And when you're as strong-willed and headstrong as Nicola, you're definitely going to be dealing with some of that stuff with people. Yeah, because it points back to her own strong-willed stuff, but also where she has stuff to learn about, right? I mean, that's just part of the game of life. Tamasha, I have not pulled Luisa's chart. I have not. I can't do that one yet. MD says at the end of the day, they work together and they have contracts until whenever. You don't want to destroy that chemistry by becoming intimate. Yeah. Now, MD, you're landing on something I think is very good to point out, and what I have kind of alluded to when I've done in the promo tour stuff and when I got into Luke Newton's charts, especially his progressed Venus. I think there is an interesting period of time, 4 years out of Luke's progressed Venus, that kind of got me going, what is that? Because if he is in a relationship with Nicola, does it go in a way that they've been behind the scenes, or they're then both open and available at that window of 3 years out, 4 years out, and does that turn on then? Do you know what I mean? Like, that is very interesting. Or is it just related to his career? But I don't think so. I think because Luke's Venus is in Aries, in Aries, is connected to Nicola's Mars, and that's that sexy connection they have, okay? I mean, with Nicola, there's other points, but it's almost like friend plus protector kind of energy. If there is a love connection, absolutely, truly, with Jake and Nicola, there's a reserved mechanism within that, and a caution, and that could be a healing kind of thing for Nicola, okay? Because the slower approach, I'm going to take care and I'm going to guard over you or whatever, that could be like, the salve, like to the wound. So I'm not saying that couldn't be the case, right? It just doesn't come across as sexy hot, even though in his own right, I'm sure that Jake is very attractive to lots of people, right? And he has beautiful, I mean, in the younger, when he has to me, I prefer a man with a head of hair, so when he has his hair and it's natural color, he has, and beautiful, he has nice facial features, I mean, everybody has their own, it's the eye of the beloved, it's all unique. What else? Beth joins. That's exactly what I think. It's an illusion. Beth, are you talking about the illusion of Nicola and Jake? Beth says, Paps would take pics of my friend Lindsay. Oh, friend and Lindsay could go where she needed to go. Oh, my. Okay, I know. I understand what you're saying now, Beth. Is your friend Lindsay Lohan had a lookalike in your friend, And because she had that, she could go anywhere she wanted to, incognito. Oh, interesting. Yeah. Tactics to be able to go places, right? I would do the same. I would do the same. I don't know what that is. MD, it's magnetic. Yeah. Okay. Let's see here. Abby says, do Luke and Jake have connections in common? Do you guys want, I'm going to jump over to that and we'll look at that because that's part of my stuff here. Gosh, it's almost 2 o'clock. Have we been on here almost 2 hours? Holy moly. Look what happens when you're having fun. Ugh, time flies. Let's see here. Jake. Hold on. Luke. That's the transits. Hold on. I gotta find what I'm looking for here. Lots of charts. Here we go. Yeah, I put stars on his ascendant in Jake's chart because we don't know his ascendant and we don't know his midheaven. Okay, because we don't have rising sign. But here's Luke Newton in the center because going on the assumption of the Leo rising for Luke Newton and Jake on the outside. So look at over here. Connection is is Uranus. Jake's Uranus is on Luke's sun within a degree. So that's just the kind of explosive energy that anytime Jake is in the news, Luke's stuff will be right there with it on the social media. You see how that just kind of opens up that in a big way, but then that will, highlight Luke's public persona, which is related to someone he's connected with. So anytime Nicola is with Jake, it will have that effect. Oh boy. Okay, what else do we got here? His Mars is also connected, just like Nicola. They're connected by that synastry. Interesting, right? So, but how does that go from a friend, from a male to another male friend? Potential, it's like there's a connection. It's an interesting connection, is it not? So there's 2 scenarios that I would say about and argue about that. Jake's Mars on Luke's Venus. Is Jake acting like the protector for someone that Luke cares about, Venus, that passionate person? That's one scenario. Or it can be like, it could be a little bit competitive. That's Aries. Aries is competitive. So there could be that. But is it real competition or is it the perception of competition that people put on them? Make sense? Oh, that makes sense. What else? Jake's North Node is probably close to Luke's actual ascendant. So Jake can learn something from what's been happening for Luke and Luke's connection with Nicola. He's getting to understand that as well. Okay. Chiron is on his vertex. There's a wound around the creative. So imagine that just by the association that they have in between Nicola, okay, Luke on one side and Jake on the other, that he gets compared a lot. And then how he might feel about that or whatever. But it's a vertex. It's kind of like there's a transformation that's going on for Jake in relation to that understanding and perception. Excuse me. And it might challenge him professionally in what he creates. Again, I don't have Jake's rising sign. 5th house is not necessarily Sagittarius for Jake, right? That could be a totally different house. I don't know. But it's the relationship connection. Excuse me, Liz. Um, yeah, I think because the Chiron is on the vertex, there's absolutely a fated connection between the two of them. Make sense? And what did I say is one of Luke's biggest evolutionary things that he's working out this life is South Node friend, North Node Sag, and how that is connected to Nicola. You see how it's coming together? So even for Luke, there he might have to like work out how he feels about Nicola in her connection to Jake. If it's not full blown a strategic move to use Jake, and there's actually these two relationships going on, say Jake and Nicola for real, and say Luke and Antonia. I don't think they're connected now, but I could be false or out of. I could be wrong in my assumptions based on the Mercury retrograde in Leo that happened in the end of the summer in August. That to me was a point where they were separating more than likely, like high probability between Luke and Antonia. Okay. There was something going on there. I still think but there could have been like a fight and then could he have gotten back together? I don't know. Sometimes that happens with people. And I think, if there's other evidence and proof that they're still together, I'd be like, okay, there's receipts. But I'm going on the detail of that Leo, the Mercury in Leo, totally kind of it was making the snip cut. And if he was doing his proper digging on what was going on social media, and he didn't take action, I'd be surprised, right? Like, come on, evidence. There was plenty of evidence, and if he was doing his homework, he would figure that out. Let's see here. So, what other things on Luke and Jake? Does that make sense? What I'm saying about like how there's the potential that there's past life storyline of Luke connected to Jake because this part of his chart is connected. That Chiron is on his the vertex, and the vertex is a fated kind of point, and it's related to creativity. But because that creativity, here's an odd thing that makes me wonder about future potential project between Luke Newton and Jake, and even Nicola. Like, do they create something that I don't know? That's a possibility because of that touch point. I need to have Jake's rising sign. There's so much I can't tell by like houses for Jake himself. What else is significant? I think those are the most prominent ones. Oh, the sun for Jake is this very closely connected with the Saturn and the Mercury for Luke, and that means work. And the person also that is connected to the work with or Saturn lessons. Saturn lessons is about how you become your own authority, how you be yourself over time, because you're done some discipline to become the thing that you meant to become. And then the Mercury, because if you put the Mercury and the Saturn together, you get 23 degrees as the midpoint between those two. And so it's like perception, thought, and social media, and all of this energy. And Jake's sun is sitting right in there, right? Does that make sense? It's a great, it's a great combination to be a gatekeeper on perceptions. Interesting. Okay. What else? Little Red says Jake is still very young. Give him another 10 years and he might. Yes. Jake in his Saturn return will be very interesting. And Jake post Saturn return will be fascinating. because he'll be very Aquarian. And what he does, and with that Jupiter in Aries, will be so amazing. I can't tell you how much he'll be pioneering in some ways. He doesn't even know that. Yeah, he'll do things that are really extraordinary because that energy has trine his North Node. He has fire energy, so how he will put it in the world. It's a lot of fire. Yeah. Okay. Speaking of friendships, then can we know if Luke overcomes the setback he had with his friends? That's a big lesson for Luke Newton. Past life friends. Yeah. Yes. And because his South Node is trine by air, so it's easier to get to that stuff. Yes, I think so. When you have your South Node ruler, hard energy is he has to have the experience, which is the square to some, like, first the South Node says, yeah, he's going to work out things with his friends. Like, the thing is he may decide, well, that group of friends were not very helpful. They could have hurt me, or this or that. They didn't have my best interest. So he makes new friends. And then the new friends may be able to hold that square of the Mercury to the Pluto. Like, Luke Newton himself will transform his ideas and connection with friends based on what he learns. Does that make sense? I hope. Because, yeah, you can go through a betrayal, whatever that was, whatever, and you could decide, you know what? I don't see myself trusting this scenario as it is right now. And as I've moved through leaning into my work, my creative, my purpose for being here, that's the Sag energy. His purpose is to be creative. Then it's not making, because the more famous I've become, that's not making a lot of sense. So I'm going to have to like kind of realign myself. He might fix some of those friendships to the degree like this will have to be the rules of engagement if you're going to be connected with me. But there will be some that don't make it past, and that will just be the snipperoo. I mean, okay. Aquarius sun does like to have their friends, right? And they will have a barrenness of time, but there will be Pluto through the Aquarius will be like a changing paradigm for that, like understanding self through that change. I hope that makes sense. Wonderful. What else? Okay, we're at 2:08. We're ticked past 2 hours. Holy moly! What have I not answered? So let me make a note here on what people have asked me that I need to answer. I think I've answered that one. I think I've answered that one. Hold on one second, guys. Thinking. Okay, answered that. Okay, there were some other questions that came in. Those who are here, if you have any questions, because I'm getting into some older questions. Somebody asked me about how's their progressed synastry chart looking and when the best timeline astrologically for them to begin. I think I might have mentioned some of that stuff in the promo stuff when I was doing progressed charts. I think there's that 4-year window, 4 years from now window for Luke Newton. There is no settling of stuff for Luke Newton until we get to that point. Okay. So there can be a lot of dynamics. And I think, and people this might line up. It might be that while they're shooting Bridgerton, there's this kind of holding on some pattern of how they are. But I don't know. There's a protective bubble that they're in when they're filming under Bridgerton. But to me, when they get past season 4 and season 5, that is true 4 years out, right? So after season 5, there is this kind of spill up, maybe that Luke takes his career in another trajectory of some sort. It's going to have a big change, but that's also Venus, and that's his connection to Nicola. So there's a change up there. And so I kind of wondered, like, does that just them filming together and the Bridgerton stuff and how that changes after season 5? And how that takes them in a new direction? Or is that absolutely connected to the possible romantic? It definitely has something to do with also romance for Luke. But again, until we see some of the veils dropping that we have been under with the Pisces energy, hard to say because we kind of have to kind of see where the unexpected energy for Nicola will send her trajectory, right? I still think there is this friendship component that's full of true love underneath it all. It's what they will do with it and how they will do it. That I'm speaking with Nicola and Luke, and if that will ever realize and be more public, like a public knowing, right? Not the are they or aren't they scenario that we're sitting in now, and that could be really create, as people say when they're on the ship. The whole concept of ship makes me laugh, but the shipping stuff will be just completely like it's going to be off. If they think it's off the charts now, just you wait. It's going to be crazy for a couple of years because those outer planets on Nicola's Mars, and then opposite her Venus. There's just no. It's really hard to predict exact. It will be unhinged in a whole new level. Yeah, all these veils. You are so right, FM. I mean, yeah, I get it. Yep, yep. Hold on to your hearts, babies, and your hats. Yeah, so I've said from day one this is a long game because if it is real, it will be a long game, and the long game has to do with that progressed Venus from Luke. Okay, and so if there are in relationships right now, they need to have those. It's like I had other relationships when I was younger, and gosh, if I was married to those people now, God help me, because they were not right for me for where I am in my life now, for all of the things that I have become. Same for them. They will have the same kind of thing. They have certain relationships like, oh, I learned so much from that relationship, and I learned so much from that relationship, and they need that for whatever that person that they will commit to in a longer, if they go in that route. But here is something about Nicola's energy that makes me wonder, like, if she goes the route that is people think as traditional getting married, settling down. There's so much in her chart that doesn't like lean into that. It leans into doing something that people would be like, "What? That's very different from what I thought." She has so much in the Uranus and Sag, and an Aquarius rising that she's going to do things in ways that people don't. It won't go. It won't go lock and step with she's gonna, fall in love with the guy and then gonna get married and have children. It's not gonna go that way. Just it's not. It's not designed that way. She is healing around relationships, but how she will define them and act on things and commit into things may not fall into the patterns that people might think. Let me just put it that way. Okay. Not saying that she wouldn't. It's just saying it still has the Aquarian theme, even if she does, because Luke's younger, uh, and Jake is younger. It's still in that's Aquarian. Okay, Aquarian is I'm not gonna, you know, marry like close to my age or whatever. The age difference is enough to make it Aquarian. Tori says, can you remind us of when the Pisces energy changes? Yeah, that's the Neptune going into Aries and then Saturn going into Aries. Those two dates, which I gave you earlier, which was March 30th of 2025 and then May 25th of 2025. However, guys, those two planets also go into Aries and then they back up into Pisces again. So when they truly stick into Pisces is in 2026. Okay. So let me give you that. So that's the thing when you have like planets that will go retrograde back into a sign and then give you that one last juice. Like we're getting Pluto and Capricorn right now. We're getting one last juice of stuff being revealed to us that is the corruption, the devastation stuff that happens around systems that are the authority figures have a grip, a certain kind of traditional grip with the Capricorn, traditional rules, these kinds of things. When Pluto stays in Aquarius, it blows up everything around Aquarian theme, shouldn't say blows up. That's bad. It really ignites the. That's another one. It really shows us. It reveals. It reveals what has to change because it is no longer serving us as a collective. Pluto will show us what has to go, and it will take it. And it will take it, whether people want to or not. So our relationship with technology will definitely have. It will be uh, so fast and massive what we learn about ourselves in our relationship to technology. Those, so you have the plus side, the light side of technology, and then you also have the dark side, like light and dark, right? Both happen. It's Earth. Earth is a duality of light and dark. Okay, so Neptune and Saturn. Okay, they when they go retrograde. I mentioned the retrograde. So they retrograde. So July of 25, like July 13th, Saturn, it could be July 12th, 13th, Saturn goes retrograde in Aries, but then it tips back into Pisces on September 2nd of 2025. Okay, mark that date. That's when Saturn goes back into Pisces. So more illusion, all right, more leaks, more conscious, something flooding into the consciousness and trying to crystallize something. Uranus in Aries will station retrograde September um, September, oh my gosh, 6th, September 6th, Uranus, September 6th of 2025, stations retrograde, and it'll go back over those Aries, and then tips back into Pisces on, excuse me, October 23rd of 2025. So then we get more illusion. Okay, another flood of the consciousness. So we're going to have more, more flooding stuff happening next year as well. Okay, we will be like, goodness, well, we've had some really tragic stuff around flooding and water with storms. That those two just like completely, it's water destroying structures. Okay, things that seem permanent gets destroyed by water. Okay. But because there's things that happen on the physical plane, but there's also things that happen in the spiritual plane and the mental plane, okay, and the emotional plane, flooding of feeling, flooding of emotions, these kind of things. So it backs up. Neptune goes direct at 29 degrees of Pisces in December of 2025 on December 10th. So then it's at 29, and then it'll finally tip over. That's in the February dates I was telling you. Well, January, Neptune goes in. Neptune goes in first, and then Saturn catches up in February. So by February 15th, Saturn is in Aries, and that's making it more solid. Now they're staying in there. Now that's kind of the date that they're both, but they truly make the conjunction when they start a new paradigm, what we call, it's kind of a new chapter of Saturn and Neptune together in Aries. When that synodic cycle starts is when they're exact on that conjunction. That is February 22nd of 2026. Then that energy settles in on that, and then you'll see that moving forward. Okay, so there is a potential also that if, let's just say, if Nicola is filming that one film all the way through 2025, she could be doing promo for that other film in 2026 alongside the stuff for Bridgerton, right? There might be another overlap because remember, her 5th house of her creative projects is Gemini. She may be, double duty on promo again, and then a lot of awards and stuff like that potentially because of when that, I don't know when that's exactly going to land from the production to the release, right? I don't know. But you can see how much energy is hitting her charts and all that. So back to Luke and Jake. I'm hoping I covered everything on their stuff, but let me think for just a minute. Yeah, I see that they have friendship potential. Luke and Jake, actually. Them learning from each other, them being tied maybe competitively, because Luke's 10th house is Venus, and Mars is on his, Jake's Mars is on his Venus, so there might be a little bit of competition there. Or it acts like a protector, and it's Jake's role can be protecting Luke's position. If that does that make sense, guys? Give me a heart if you think that makes sense, what I'm saying. Okay, Sandra, I will jump into that full moon in now because that's a good one. Let's see here. Nicola PM says, Nicola said, people are in your life for a reason and a season or a lifetime. Yes, and Luke is, well, that's an assumption. PM. Luke is for a lifetime and Jake is for a season. Okay, that's your perception. Fantastic. Yeah, good. I don't know for sure yet. Absolutely on that. Yeah. MD, people don't have to be married and have children to have a fulfilled life. Absolutely. And their roles could actually protect children of the world in a big way. Okay, there's also that. MD says, my husband is 20 years older and I am an Aquarius. Yeah, and he is a Scorpio. Talk about negotiations. He is a Scorpio. Talk about negotiation. Yeah, I bet you have some hardcore negotiations. But fixed energy, man. I've got my thing and I'm sticking to it. Sandra Pelton, how will the November okay, let's go to the November full moon. November 15th full moon. Okay, let's go full moon. Where did I put that one? It's November 15th. Give me a second. I'm going to jump to it and find it in my array of charts here. Here we go. Jake, Nicola. Here's Nicola and the natal transits on November 15th. Let's talk about this for a second. So on the full moon, that's coming. So this is a forecasting part, okay? So again, she might be 1 or 2 ascendant of Aquarius. We don't have that exact. So general on date, exactness. But on that full moon, you can see that's going to highlight the bottom of her chart, the midheaven. So something will be visible because the midheaven of the chart. So this to me is that if she's connected with Luke, there can be something that pops open more visibly because Luke's Taurus is at the top of his chart. But for Nicola, it's at the bottom of her chart, and something, look at that. Uranus is conjunct that full moon. Holy moly. That is huge. Yeah, something is opening big time. And it's something that might be Scorpio nature. Is it like Scorpio is intense? It's like heavy investigation on if something pops, like, which we know the fandom does anyway. So if something pops, there'll be massive, like, oh, what is that? What is that? What is that in the image? Massive, right? You can see that. So, and that can be something that is divine energy for Nicola. Boom, here it is. You're going to be managing this. That's been protected and hidden. Now it's open. And then what else? It is transformational because you have Sun in Scorpio at that full moon, of course, and then you have Pluto at 29 of Capricorn. Capricorn in her 12th house is still somewhat hidden, but definitely in marching toward her transformation. And guess what? In opposite right here is Jupiter. It kind of creates this yod. A yod is like the Jupiter thing comes in, and it's expanding something for her in her friends, because Jupiter is the ruler of the Sagittarius, but it's also her self-confidence and that kind of thing. It hasn't, and that Jupiter is retrograde, so it's like kind of touching on something that might has already surfaced before. And as that ticks back, as that Jupiter ticks back towards that Chiron over the next, week or two, to get to 16 of that. So let's see, November. That's going to like highlight that wound of the Gemini for her. And I think some of that wound in Gemini is related to the connection that Nicola has when she's spoken about Dumois, and how then that comes back and hits, kind of comes back and pokes her, like in that. Okay, remember when we were talking about, like I've done this in other parts of the promo tour videos where I talk about how their charts come to life, where Penelope and Lady Whistledown and the whole theme of like gossip and how being revealed as Lady Whistledown was in Luke's eye very, in Luke's, did it again, in Colin's eyes is very dangerous. The Ton, they don't, they're going to remember, this thing, it's, quite dangerous for your position. And so this is where the theme, where I'm like, when I was like looking at all this stuff and I was like, people were making the connection between Nicola saying something about whoever's running Dumas. And I went down that rabbit hole, or that rat hole, whatever you want to call it. And I was looking at, okay, there's this gal, I don't know her name. I don't know anything about absolutes, but it's like Melissa somebody. And there could be, if she's the only one that's managing what gets posted on that, anonymous whatever kind of thing. And I was just looking at it, I was like, oh my gosh. It made my eyes roll so many times because of what they put out there. And it's like, it's crowd sourcing, but she's the poster. She's the one who takes the action. That's her using her Mars to actually like, boop, I gotcha, boop, I gotcha, boop, I gotcha. Bloody hell, her karma, excuse my language, it just is too much. But maybe it's a soul contract to learn about it, right? Okay. Some of us walk on the dark side on purpose. So there you go. And we're learning, we're evolving. So that would be what she has a habit of doing in the past. She just brings it back into this life and she's doing it again. It's just like a car, horse thief, 100, 200 years ago, and the person's born in this life and they steal a car. Same pattern, the theft, okay? Or the gossip, okay? Nicola's North Node is in communications, third house, and Mars and Aries. There's a stinger to it, a little bit. It's very cutting. It can be cutting. So there's a lesson about the relationship with the fence, and somebody's using that information against her, right? But then it's how Nicola responds, okay? But it's related, like when she's feeling successful, it comes in and zings her, just like the theme of Penelope having a wound, and then she creates Lady Whistledown stuff and does the thing, right? So she played up this in her career. This is a huge, one of her biggest roles that she'll be remembered for. That it's teaching her something, but it's also there's some soul contractual contract, I think, between her and the person that she's spoken out using her Mars energy and saying, but then it comes and snags her. Does that make sense what I'm saying? So it's like very important to kind of consider the bigger picture, and that what Nicola might be learning, about how to use the energy, but because she has that one and kind of powerful collective crowdsourced, we don't check our facts. We just create these things and we pap people, or they create pap. I mean, come on, they freaking create pap walks on purpose. So for so many people, I can't believe the poo that it is, but it's like, but there are some that are real and they're trying to have a relationship. But how much do they want to put in the public eye, right? I mean, that's a bit of the point, I think, with ego. Ego is very Leo for us all, but we use parts of there's your ascendant, you have a job to use your ego for something too. Like you have a purpose about, you're learning about the energy of your rising sign to give out to the world. And then wherever that ruler of your ascendant is going to how that might express out by the choices that you make. But does that make sense what I'm saying? So Nicola is learning something powerful about how that stuff goes down. But here's my thought, another thought on that. Maybe you guys know Halle Berry and how Halle Berry fought against the paps and them papping her children. And then she fought and had a law so people couldn't pap the children, right? They couldn't do that. You know that? So there was one kind of social activism that put her in their mama bear mode, and I wouldn't blame her, to protect her children. There is definitely becoming more and more this privacy issue, right? Like with how we are in the media, we have AI coming in that's just going to be gnarly on some things too, but like what's real, what's not real. And to me, I hope to gosh we have the situation where we have to have watermarks that something was created at all at any point onto some image or video that it's AI, because it is getting so dangerous. I mean, I've seen so many things on AI on YouTube, it makes me because then it's like, what's real? What's the truth here? Why are they creating this? It's like, anyway, and they're using someone's image, actual someone's face, and they're putting out, anyway, and it's not a real thing. Anyway, I think it's really important for Nicola because she may be a very strong spokesperson by what she experienced, by what Luke experienced, by what Jake experienced, that she may at some point be involved with law at some point because of her experiences, because she has so much Sagittarius is law. Also, Libra is law, the scales of justice. So there can be damaging things that put people in a precarious position because of what is, but there is like, you're asking also everyone who's out in the public that might have the cell phone and have access to it, how they act responsibly. So here's the thing. You could ask the public, I mean, that's on each person. Like if they're going to I want a picture, but if I want a video, there's this huge social responsibility of this is a person, but there's this removed kind of thing with celebrity and the individual. That's a very Aquarian and Leo thing. And the social media is like, oh, I could do this and then I could share whatever. But that Dumois is sitting right in the middle of that. And any other type of PAP organization that it just feeds that. And that to me is, I don't know if you're going to corral that, but there will be incidents that are so huge that happen when Pluto goes through Aquarius that will have people demanding, we have to be responsible because it's hurting people so much, right? That's sad, but that's the potential truth here about the invasion of privacy. Not just the children. I mean, that's now on the law in the books, but that wouldn't be surprised that another law comes into place for how much and when and whatever's. But I don't know how you're going to do that with the public. Do you know what I mean? Because that's how Dumois gets their stuff. But I think what will happen possibly to Dumois is that it becomes socially unacceptable by something that they post. And it'll be almost like a canceling, right? Like that could definitely take place. Yeah. Or when Uranus goes into Gemini, there will be a lot of volatility around Gemini media. And there will be transformational energy in Aquarius, excuse me. And so I think that's important to point out. I don't know what you're asking me there, FM. You're asking, do you think out of norm for Nicola being babies back to back, extremely focused on career that can't see her doing it now? Oh, you mean having babies? Is that what you mean, having babies? I'm not sure what you're asking in that question. Sorry. Necessary makeup. Imagine Luke and Jake being besties, right? I think they would connect in artistic ways. Yes, absolutely, as actors. it just depends on actual intentions and connections between Nicola and Jake, right? So, FM. Lena says, it's interesting that one of their last interviews at the London premiere had Nicola saying, don't compromise, wait for the right person, if their timeline potentially has a 4-year unfolding timeline. I know, right? That's kind of funny thing about that now. And then FM, it would be wild if Luke, Nicola, and Jake actually do something together in the future. Yes, of course, it would be extraordinary because of the energy across all their charts, right? And yeah, it's fascinating. So Nicola, full moon, there's going to be some unexpected things. I hope, okay, so she's in a Jupiter annual perfection. So I always look, what's Jupiter? Jupiter is here. And that is, like I said, it's the yod point of Sun in Scorpio and Pluto in Capricorn, which means it's very close to going, and it's very close to going back into Aquarius, but that Jupiter's at the yod apex, okay? So Jupiter, the planet, is in her 5th house creatively. I hope there's nothing that would be unexpected, like um, like on set or something when they're creating something, right? Like on the set of Bridgerton, because that's in her creative 5th house, right? And it's retrograde, so, but it's maybe something that has an awareness that comes on the internal plane. It's not experience in the external world. It's only experience in the internal world that she becomes aware of something about a friend. Okay. That could be expressed. There could be a leak. I already discussed that because we have Saturn is still in Neptune sign Pisces. And then we have Mercury at that point, November 15th, in Sag on Nicola's Saturn opposite her Chiron. So there's absolutely something that can come in that's experienced with a friend that is wounding a little bit, right? She doesn't have the information about something that's important to have in that moment. I hope that makes sense. So yes, it absolutely can be the case. And something about someone else, because Mercury rules her 8th house of other people's values, okay? And so it could be her open enemy, which, I don't know. I would say that we know that Dumois, a lot of fandom know that Dumois has this kind of relationship with Nicola. And so that could be the open enemies values trigger something. Make sense? Or it can be actual contractual person like Luke Newton as co-star. There have something that is said, done, whatever, and then also activates that. So there could be something on set that's kind of revealed, but we might not necessarily see it. It would be for her to see something. But it also could be if Jake is in a true committed relationship with her, could be his values triggering something, right? But to me, there's still a debate on if there is a true committed. We are led to believe that, but to me, again, Pisces, Saturn and Neptune, illusions. So it makes me kind of wonder about that, right? But something does leak out because that's Mercury trine, it's square, that's Neptune. Square the Saturn in Pisces, okay? And square her Jupiter. So there's a lot of squares going on, challenging energy to navigate. You also have the Venus in transit of that full moon applying to her own Neptune. Nicola has it on her own Neptune. So what that does is, like, creatively, she has like something emerging from within her about Venus and being so in the scripts that she might be working out around this time could have this Venus hitting something in. I hope this makes sense. Something that she's acting out in on production can have the Venus Capricorn hitting something significant for her related to Neptune and that squaring the node and squaring Mars. So there's kind of an awakening to understanding the perception of something. She's becoming more aware of the perception of a relationship, the perception of the Venus, you see? So that's what's kind of interesting. And then so there's a lot there for Nicola to understand. And then at that full moon, we have Mars in Leo, which would be opposite her ascendant, but absolutely on the ascendant and recently conjunct his moon, Luke Newton's moon. Okay? I think I got most of them, but the really big one is the Uranus on that moon and how that opens up stuff. Okay, so let's jump over to Luke at this full moon. Here's Luke. And so Luke at the full moon, you can see the Taurus at the top of his chart. So there's a potential for something opening at the top of his chart. Image, body, career. So there could be something that's announced related to something in his career can be announced, or something gets leaked from production of season 4. But it's also tapping into the sun is on this square that I've talked about a lot between, look at that, the lot of fortune is right over there too. So we have the Saturn, the Mercury in Aquarius getting squared by that full moon, right? That is lighting him up in a big way. So there's the potential to see that emerge in some kind of something being very visible again for Luke Newton. The node is almost on his Venus. Okay, so full moons they light things up, right? So it really lights up. Oh, this full moon is huge for Luke because it's the north node on his Venus. It's 1 degree away from his Venus. So when that north node comes to his Venus, it's like he's landing something big, or something else is like being really visible. Might be okay, so Mars plays into that north node. Like from his Mars is 9 Cancer. So Luke automatically has a protective Mars. Like it's in his kind of like the hero, the need to be a hero archetype. Okay, why? What would be there? Is there something that's in the filming of season 4 that we don't see yet, or is there something leaking out from some other kind of activation of the need to protect? I don't know. But that Mars also is the ruler of the Scorpio, so it's like something that is disturbing the deeper psyche of Luke about what is 4th house Scorpio transformation and the transformation of the fear. So there's something there, and so there's some kind of action that's taken. He's getting activated from the Mars onto that ascendant, right? So what I think is his ascendant, but it's definitely within a few degrees of his moon. If not, remember I said there is a potential that he could be a Virgo rising with the moon at 1 degree or 0.1 degree of Leo. That is still a potential. So it activates that emotional stuff. But either way, it's already activating that, and then it moves towards, but that Mars is going to retrograde right back into his 12th house and activate a lot of emotional stuff. So if Luke is not with anybody, and Nicola and Jake are having some kind of connection that gets spilled over again by PAPs and things like that, does that activate some kind of something? There is something to that. That's potential because of the connection that Luke has with Nicola between the Venus and the Mars in their natal charts. And this Mars is in, fire between that and that. So to me, there's an activation of some sort. Does he come out in a way that's like, I'm showing you more of my private life, and I've taken predicted? I don't know if he would act like that though. But this is kind of like out of his hands. There's something that emerges not by his hand, by someone else's, right? The Uranus on that moon is so illuminated about body, about Taurus themes and career. So it wouldn't surprise me to see a leak again of some sort, so it's visible, right? And this one would be about Luke and his connection with Nicola, because that's the point of connection, but there could be others involved. Yeah. Because the sun, that squares the Mercury in his 7th house. So the way someone communicates the perceptions of thoughts, the Aquarian, it's through the social media more than likely, and that's kind of being illuminated, if that makes sense. Out of those places that they think they have control over, but they are going through massive transformation and things are getting illuminated, and sometimes not by choice. Okay, thanks, FM. Yeah, I remember this. FM, in terms of regard to Nicola having babies, if Nicola is going to have babies, there's going to be some challenges too, because her 5th house is babies and her Mercury is in the 12th house. So it'll be very private. It'll be a secret, and we would learn about it later anyway. But it's also something in the unconscious mind. And it would be in a year that the 5th house is the annual, that Mercury is the Lord of the year, and it'd be a 5th house. So if you want to like calculate potential for babies, you look at Mercury. Okay, Mercury sits in her 12th house, so it'll be behind the scenes. It'll be hidden for quite some time, but it would eventually come through. But it's more that I look for the year that things can move that way, and so it's like. She could get pregnant the year that she's in her 4th house annual perfections, because that's the Venus, or the attempts to. And so that's not 20. So 2025, she's in a 3rd house annual perfection. That's Mars. So I wouldn't say it's Mars. But when you go to 4th house, there's the potential that you're attempting. But when you give birth, it's actually you've moved into the 5th house annual perfection. So I give that 2027. Hope that makes sense. And I don't know about back to back. I mean, I kind of have to look at other things, but that to have the first is big. That makes you a parent. And because she has Mercury or because her 5th house is Gemini, she could have twins. So there you go. And that also being an older parent, you as a woman, when you're having children older, you tend to have more probability of having twins anyway. Aofi, the full moon is right on his natal Pluto. Yes, it is massive for Luke. Something is being illuminated for Luke. So you have to kind of look at all the things. So it's kind of like behind the scenes, is it playing out in respect to, something that he's doing in his art form? Or is it related to the significant other person that by contractual we know is his colleague, Nicola, who's an actor who he is connected with by legal document, like you sign the contract, you're doing the part, right? That's still 7th house person that I can pay attention to. And so I would say that that's important to kind of look into. So what is going on with Nicola could absolutely be connected with Luke Newton, and then it illuminates something for Luke. and maybe we get privy to that. So I hope that helps. Man, we're coming up on it's 2 o'clock, 2:51 my time. So I've been doing this for almost 3 hours, so you're probably worn out. But wow, there's 105 people on here. Anyway, let me see here. Oh, let me do Jake's just for the full moon. I think I pointed out Luke's well enough for now. Let's do Jake's real quick. Oops, what did I do? There's Jake's. Okay, Jake at this full moon. Again, we don't know his rising sign and we don't know his midheaven, so we don't know where in the life. But as time emerges and as the more things Jake is tied into, we'll get tighter and tighter on what potentially his rising and midheaven are. I don't have those, but just from planets to planets, I'm looking at planet to planet. So if his, so say, let's just say that maybe Jake's moon is at like 23, 24, 25 of Taurus, right? We don't, his Saturn is absolutely at 11 degrees of Taurus, right? But this full moon is illuminating something about him and the role he plays in his moon. Okay, so it does illuminate something, but I don't know where in the life, right? It is connected to Nicola because we know that their charts are connected, and so related to Luke, don't know, right? I mean, they're usually connected now, right? Because of how they are playing. But because this full moon is square his sun, that's pretty powerful. And I would say, excuse me, that the North Node for him is going to become more prominent. It's going to be more visible. Like there's a challenge to, so he'll actually, it's easier to be the South Node. You know the South Node. You fall into the pattern of the South Node, and he's still quite young, so he'll probably still be in that pattern of the South Node, and reaching for that North Node expression, right? So, and you become more and more your North Node as you go on in time. But it's something can be revealed about Jake as a part of the full moon, November 15th. So there you go. But see that Mars is totally close to his North Node. Absolutely. You see? So there's something that might be coming out in relation to his work with the work he has done with William Tell will maybe become more prominent in the social media and giving him visibility to his work that has been done and bringing forward more his sun, his Aquarius sun, right? So that's possible. And but it's illuminating, and there's something extraordinary that's happening on his soul level. The moon in Taurus is having something light up for him because that's Uranus, and it's Uranus square his sun, Uranus on the full moon. So he's definitely getting something activated in a big way as well. Absolutely. So based on what really truly does land, as the moon is going full, because it can be like the day before, it's kind of like 3 days. I always look at I can look like 3-day window is pretty tight depending on the thing. Yeah. So, okay. Let's see here. Oh yeah, that helps. When you guys give me thumbs up, it does actually help the live. Thank you, MD. That was so kind of you. It does help the algorithm share out my live. Absolutely. Gosh, learning all the bells and whistles of these things. Okay, guys. Let's see here. Emma95 says, I hope Nick is strong enough to protect herself from the star system. Oh, you mean like Hollywood? And I hope she's not playing around with Luke. We'll see. Yeah, we have to let people walk their path, and we have to be careful with the judgment. I mean, if she's playing around, then she'll have to navigate that, right? Like she'll learn. I don't think so. That's her co-star who has a very strong friendship with. MD, we have 29 likes, so some people have done it. Thank you. That's so kind of you. Thank you, Sandra. Okay, everybody, we're kind of coming up on the last few minutes because then we're going to be at like 3 hours. Oh my gosh. Let me just double check my notes and then we will be ending this live just because y'all can then go on and then pop back into it. I will post it and all that. I think I've answered most things I wanted to answer though. We've covered a lot of ground. I really didn't talk about the PAP leaks from October 23rd, but you got the sense that I think there's like the potential for Jake being a gatekeeper for that. But it could be, again, remember the illusion stuff of Pisces energy right now, that there could be a genuine connection. So we want to be careful, like just keep the potentials, but there's long game potential still for Nicola and Luke based on the past life stuff I've discussed already. And yeah, it's what they do by taking certain actions and because as I say, sometimes you take one step forward, 2 steps back as a soul, and you have to review things before you actually make the breakthrough. And you can have different lives like she has a lot of energy. Nicola has a lot that she's learning about past lives and friends and connections and communication. And that's all part of her life. Okay, Sarah Pendleton, will there be a transcript for this video? I have no idea if there's a running transcript, what they could create it. The only other thing is maybe in the community page, I will share a link that can actually create that. Okay, that's all I know. I think I've answered everybody's questions to the best I could at this moment. I hope you'll appreciated that. As I mentioned, the next live, you will have to be subscribed to my channel to get into the next live, because I want to protect it to some degree for people being subscribed, because the next subject will be the politics stuff of November, the election day in the USA, and that's a sensitive subject even for me. But I will do a brief live. Gosh, if I spend 2 hours on that, God help me. 3 hours. Yeah, I will do it, but you have to be subscribed for the next one. I will make a note on the community page because I need to kind of create a little bit of a barrier for people just joining from wherever. So I encourage people to get subscribed onto my channel. That's just the free subscription, be a subscriber. That's all. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you have a great, rest of your Sunday, wherever you are in the world, and the rest of your week. Have a fantastic week. There's a lot going on. We have a new moon on Wednesday or Thursday, depending on where you are in the world. But that's new energy and will kind of come out of the eclipse season. Yay. Because that's a new moon in Scorpio, so they'll be interesting. All right, because as you are well aware from the full moon for November 15th that I just shared, it's going to be an extraordinary full moon come November 15th. All right, thumbs up. Thank you so much, guys. I love you so much. Have a great rest of your week and take care.